Final Fantasy VII is one of the most influential games of all time. So, when the eventual reveal of the remake was announced back in 2015, fans and others alike were excited at the possibility that a remake of the classic JRPG is finally happening, even going as far as making the reveal become the most watched E3 trailer that year. It was clear from the get-go that this game had the potential to be something special. So we skip forward in time to 2020, and on the 2nd of March, Square Enix released a playable demo that allowed you to play for the first chapter, which is also how I discovered the game. There was quite a lot of buzz around it, and after searching around a bit, I decided to give it a shot. I figured it wouldn't hurt to at least give it a try. I ended up playing Chapter 1 like 5 to 10 times over the course of the next month because I couldn't get this game out of my head. It was almost like having a crippling drug addiction. Simply said, I needed more content. So, when the game finally released on April 10th, I couldn't be more excited. I got the game, rushed home, and basically that's what consumed my life for the next few days. The whole game was such a blast and is easily in my top 3 favorite games of all time. And honestly, I can say that it's mostly down to the brilliance of that demo. The first chapter is such a great introduction, not only to the game, but also the franchise. I just have to talk about it, especially if you've never played it, because I believe it's truly a unique experience you should at least try once. Everything that was shown off here was done expertly. So this game is an adaptation from the original Final Fantasy VII, which was already really good. The team here put so much care and attention into making something more than just a remake or even a lazy remaster. This game expanded upon locations, characters, story, and even the music in such a way that even fans of the series were able to play through like it was a new original game. But before I go into these improvements, I want to give a rundown of what actually happens in Chapter 1. So the game starts off with a beautiful iteration of the original Final Fantasy VII intro cutscene. However, here they actually added more scenes before to flesh it out a bit more. You can see what the life is like in Midgar, and it gives the player a glimpse into what life is like for these people. You can see vehicles going about, construction going on, people working, children riding their bikes, and also playing about in the park. It would seem from a first glance that everything is normal. However, there is a sight that no matter where you are on the top level, you can't avoid, and that's the glowing macro reactors, which are used to get the macro energy from within the planet to fuel the city. This then swiftly leads to the part where the camera follows Aerith, one of the main characters, as she's walking about as a flower peddler. As people step all over flowers, ignore her, the camera then pans to show off the entire city in motion, which then the game title appears. It's very cinematic and definitely still has that same feel from the original, so I can say Square Enix nailed this part. Afterwards, we get to see the main protagonist, Cloud Strife, on top of a train going to his destination. As a mercenary, you have decided to assist a group called Avalanche in destroying the macro reactors in exchange for money. Upon arriving, your team gets rid of the soldiers guarding the train station, and the game starts. You are tasked with clearing out some low-level grunts that are in your way. Immediately you can tell that you are levels above them, so you go through them with ease. This is also where the game explains the mechanics to you, and I must say, the game communicates things very easily, and they take you through the game mechanics one by one, so you're not overwhelmed by everything, which definitely helps when getting into a new type of game. It might be a little detailed, but it's the little things that make me appreciate it so much more. So after you defeat a couple of enemies, they actually introduce some of the members of Avalanche as they try and get a gate open. The others who are with you for this mission are Jesse, Biggs, Wedge, and Barrett. After some dialogue kind of showing you who they are, you continue on with the mission. You go through clearing the facility as you edge closer to the inside of the Mako plant. The main objective for a team here is to plant a bomb on the main part of the reactor so that the inner components and basically everything around it gets blown up so it can no longer pump Mako from the planet and then escape before the timer of the bomb goes off. And at first, everything is going just a-okay. Barrett, alongside Cloud, reach the main part of the reactor with the others just waiting behind. Just as they are about to plant the bomb though, a mechanical scorpion jumps out at them, which initiates an amazing boss fight. After you manage to defeat the scorpion, it does manage to get one last attack activated, which sends a laser spiraling out of control, causing most things to just start exploding, which is a clear sign that they need to escape. They join up with the others and just manage to narrowly escape the facility. As they reach the end, we see the entire reactor blown up, causing a mass debris to fall in the sector. And that is because the company who is pumping Mako from the planet actually causes the destruction themselves. They get a bunch of robots in from each direction, shooting things, blowing things up, so they would actually blame these so-called terrorists to be the main cause of why that happened. Even though that happens, the mission is still a success and it means the end of Chapter 1. So obviously there's a lot here that I didn't cover, but you can see just from that there are a lot of great moments here in Chapter 1, with a very clear way of navigating the goal to the player, not overly confusing so it's easy for the player to grasp the story and gameplay elements right off the bat. Actually, talking about the story, Chapter 1 is pretty interesting because it introduces most of the main characters, with the exception of a couple main ones, but for the most part, right from the get-go, you know how this world operates and its rules. Character motivations are immediately made clear, and the characters' personalities shine here to make it more of a compelling story than the original. And this is actually where the game changes from the original, as the side characters like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge get way more screen time here. This was a great addition in my opinion, as this is a remake. It would only make sense that when a game strives to flesh everything out, which they already did with the gameplay and visuals, which are absolutely beautiful by the way, that they should tackle some of the existing characters to make them more deep and more interesting. They get more dialogue and story relevance rather than just being some random grunts from Avalanche. When game studios go to this length, it is easily recognizable that they go above and beyond, and that's what makes me love this game so much more. There are also some pretty memorable moments here, particularly one scene stood out to me where Barrett and Cloud have a little disagreement in the elevator. You can see that the chemistry isn't all there yet, and that they've only met not that long ago, so when time came to begin this mission, you could say that there still was a level of distrust between each other. On one hand, you have Barrett, who doesn't see why they need a merc with them on this mission, as he believed at the time that he and the rest would do just fine. Also, he sees Cloud as a potential danger, as he used to be with Shinra, the company that is using and pumping all the Mako from the ground. But then, on the other side, you have Cloud, and he's kind of opposite to Barrett in that way because his distrust comes in the form of not believing in the mission. He states many times that he's only in it for the money, and the little argument from the elevator I mentioned was just about that. He questions Barrett on his motivation for the mission and even tells him to get help at one point. And I definitely didn't wheeze the first time I saw that. It certainly shows that this is not the logical matchup to take upon this mission. However, it does prove to be successful though. The others make it clear that your skill is unmatched and the help is appreciated, causing Barrett to bite his tongue at times because he probably knows that they are right to a certain degree. I really like this actually because even though the members of Avalanche don't really agree to everything and may not necessarily want to do things in the same ways, they still share a common goal of helping the planet, which ultimately means defeating Shinra and stopping the flow of Mako that fuels the city. One last thing I wanted to touch upon is Shinra itself. You can tell that from the ending of this chapter that they are up to no good and they do some pretty shady shit, which sets up the rest of the game as the villains. I like the way they showcase them here because throughout this chapter you can see the fact that they know the reactor is going to get blown up, they see the intruders as they walk through the facility, and instead of stopping them, their approach is a little different as eventually they reach a point where they know the reactor is going to get blown up. So instead of dealing with the loss, they actually make it more destructive on purpose. They know the reactor is done for, so by blowing up the entire reactor and causing mass damage to the top part of Sector 1, they purposely let that happen, so Avalanche are seen as the bad guys. I will say that is a pretty unique way of handling that situation and really builds up to the mystery around them, as the player might wonder, what is their actual goal? Why would they do this sort of thing? This is the sort of stuff that gets me hooked, and it definitely has the effect of making you want to play through the game more to find out what happens. The combat here is absolutely excellent. It is a blend of current third-person action RPG mechanics and turn-based combat, like the older Final Fantasy games. The fluidity of the animations mixed in with the simplicity of the controls makes it so that it can be appreciated in many ways. I just love the way they incorporate the abilities. You don't need to remember any complicated combo button combinations or anything like that. Simply open up your commands menu and time will slow down so you can carefully choose what you want to do. Whether it's to use abilities, spells, or items, this mechanic is very nice, and as a homage to the original, it's cool to see that they have found a way to incorporate both styles. This kind of innovation is what makes games such as this one stand out in a sea of games releasing one after another. With so many unfinished games built on false promises to games purely made to drain your wallet, Final Fantasy VII Remake stands out among them as a product that is not there to disrespect you as the consumer. Instead, offer you an experience that is both nostalgic and fresh to create a lasting impression on the player. These are the sort of games the industry should be prioritizing, but hey, what do I know? Apparently $7 billion in revenue isn't enough to make proper games, right? As much as I want to shit on EA and other companies, I don't really feel like focusing on dog shit in this video, so instead I'll tell you about the combat outside of the commands, as that is actually pretty deep as well. It's your pretty standard third-person action hack and slash. You can use your weapon to slash enemies with just a square button, and depending on what you do, you can do some special moves like holding down square will do this sort of 360 AoE move, so it's pretty handy if you're surrounded. There's even a Punisher mode that it's used for more aggressive playstyle and allows you to counter when holding block whenever you get hit. You can dodge attacks by rolling, or you can block, which reduces the percentage of damage you take. It's good to use both, as enemies will act differently, so you might find that it might be easier to block or dodge attacks to get rid of the enemy, or simply to stay alive longer. They did also bring back the materia system. You can switch out different materia that either increase stats or gives the player a new ability or spell. It gives the game a bit more strategy, as you might need to change materia depending on the fight. This system is done by placing materia on the equipment that you have on you, which also comes with each set of stats, bonuses, so it's a nice feature to be able to manage yourself and your team in this way. However, all of these things are within actual combat. When you roam around, your actions are fairly limited to just slashing and interacting with characters and other objects like buttons and stuff like that. You can even slash boxes to get MP back or even items. Everything that I said here is why I love this game so much. The first section embodies everything that made me like it so much in the first place, and it was down to this demo. The whole chapter gives you a sneak peek into all of its mechanics and systems that actually makes you care about the rest of the game. You want to see where it goes because it's done in an interesting way, and that is one of the game's biggest strengths. Before I finish off, I have to talk about the cherry on top. The music here is outstanding. There are some really breathtaking renditions here of the Final Fantasy VII classics, and they even brought back Nobuo Uematsu, the original composer for the Final Fantasy VII tracks, to make music for this game. The one that stands out in Chapter 1 is, of course, Bombing Run. I love the orchestral take on it, and it immediately sets the mood of the game. Everything here was redone, and this is the sort of stuff that, in my opinion, turns a good game into a great game. So yeah, the soundtrack is a big plus. And yeah, that's about it. The whole game is nothing short of masterclass, and the Square Enix team can be proud of what they achieved here. And without Chapter 1, this demo, I don't think I would have ever gone to experience it. It is why first impressions are so important, and why the brilliance of the first chapter then carries over to the rest of the game. It is clear as day as why fans of the series wanted the original title modernized. It is why I consider this to be one of my favorite games ever, and something I can always look back fondly on. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you managed to get to the end of this video and you enjoyed it, please consider giving a like and subscribing to the channel if you want to see more videos like this in the future. This took quite a lot of effort, so let me know what you think. With that said, I'll see you next video. Bye!